Is Lindo still the man? I don't know. We'll find out here in the next hour. So, everyone, Mike Lindstrom here. For those who don't know me, it's been this is about a couple months in the making. I get to bring in a few of my friends. And that's the best way to play is when you're playing with your friends. This is not even work. You just talk and tell stories. So just a quick backdrop on this. You can actually see this in the backdrop in a minute here. The what's your story in 2022 being the best version of yourself. And that was what inspired the thought was actually my book. If some of you guys remember, that's actually the title of my book, What's Your Story? Discover the Man Behind Your Dad. Came out a few years ago. And it's also one of my favorite questions I love asking people in sales, socially and otherwise. So I thought, what would be cool if I could bring on a few of my friends for an hour and let them tell their story of success and give takeaways. I love takeaways. When you have a couple of success strategies that you could walk away with, that's the goal for today. So our goal is to keep it to an hour. You can make comments. We will see those comments in real time. So if you have questions, our goal will be to answer those questions at the end of the segments. So before we jump in here, I want to let you know that these three people that are going to be joining me today are actually my buddies. These are my friends. These aren't just clients or people I'm bringing off the street or being paid to be here. These are my friends. So I happen to know a lot about their backgrounds and their stories, and I'm going to try to draw it out of them about 12 to 15 minutes on each segment, and then we'll wrap it from there. So what's your story? So as you listen, I want you to think about 2022 and some things that you can do to help yourself kind of put this whole pandemic behind us, create the best version of yourself. So without further ado, I want to get right to it. My first guest, Henry Kellem. Henry and I have been together for 14 years. We met in Las Vegas while we were shopping, totally random. And as you guys know, I don't believe in random. Things happen for reasons. We ended up exchanging business cards and got into a coaching relationship years later. And I got to learn Henry's story. And his story, the dirt road to Rodeo, is this incredible story. So I'm going to start off with Henry telling that. Obviously, Henry's an influencer. He's huge on social media. He's got a clothing line. He's an author. He's doing online training. He's coaching. Doing so many things. He wears so many different hats with his audience. So I want to bring in my man Henry. Came in all the way from Beverly Hills to join me today. So Henry, let's get right to it, man. That's the story of how you and I met. But let's talk about this whole concept of the dirt road to Rodeo, because it's so rich in all the things that you faced as a kid growing up in the trials and tribulations. So tell us your story first, and then let's get into that.
Yeah, so Dirt Road to Rodeo, of course, it's symbolic of the journey that we all got to take, that growth and transformation. I look at the dirt road as like the fixed mindset, and rodeo symbolizes the abundance mindset. So for me personally, before I could do anything, I had to make some different decisions because, I'm growing up in poverty. My father's not there. He actually had another set of kids he took care of, so it made me and my brother feel like we're not good enough. So I had a lot of internal things that I had to go through. So that's more of what Dirt Road to Rodeo is. So I look at it like everybody has a dirt road. We all have something that we got to overcome in life so we can reach our full potential, and that symbolizes rodeo. So it's not so much about the journey from east to west, although I did move from eastern North Carolina all the way to Beverly Hills. And the funny thing, a story of me moving to Beverly Hills, I was watching the Beverly Hillbillies one day, and Jed struck oil. And he moved the family to Beverly Hills. And I was like, I'm going to move to Beverly Hills one day. My brothers and them looked at me and they said, how you going to get there? And I said, I think my way there. Because we didn't have anything else or whatever. And I didn't really understand the implications of what I was saying about the thoughts and everything. And if you follow me, I'm really big into the brain. I'm fascinated in the brain and how it works. So I just said, I think my way there. And I just had this mission that I was going to get to California one day. And, so like they say, without the vision, the people perish. So I just had that vision that I was going to make something happen. So I had to change my story, because at first it was a victim. I just felt like a victim. My father wasn't here. If I had this, I could do better, criticizing and blaming. And then I had to own the responsibility, for where I was and change my mindset. So people often hear me say, keep it gangster, right? So when I say gangster, I'm talking about a mentality, and I'm talking about the perseverance to keep going. If you fall down 7 times, get up 8. And as a matter of fact, when I think of one of the biggest gangsters out there, you want me to tell you who I think about?
Who's that?
Jack Canfield.
Jack Canfield, the author.
The author.
Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, my gosh. You got to hear this.
Got to be one of the biggest gangsters because, listen, it took him 144 times to get his book published. He said if he'd have stopped at 100 no's, we wouldn't know who he is today. So the question I want to ask everybody out there is, how many no's would it take you to give up on your dreams? So, you got to be gangster after 140 people say no, and you got the enthusiasm to still go and try to get this book published, but he believed in himself enough. So when I say keep it gangster, that's what I'm saying, like that, have the perseverance to keep going. Yeah. The consistency to commit yourself to something, because we don't do what we feel like. Every day you're not going to feel like working out and doing what you got to do, but if you committed to it, you're going to do it. Yeah. And faith is the last thing. Like Martin Luther King said, you don't have to see the whole staircase in order to take the first step. So those three things, perseverance, consistency, and faith, is what I call the gangster mentality.
Love it.
So when you hear me say keep it gangster, that's what I mean. And we can even go biblical, because they say be not conformed to this world, right, but transformed by the renewing of your mind. So if you're going to stand out from the crowd and do something different from what everybody else doing, you got to be gangster. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? To walk to the beat of your own drum or whatever. So when I say gangster, I mean in that mentality. It's all a mindset. So one thing I want to make sure that you hit, though, because this is a very important fact. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, because you went through a lot as a child. The living situation. When you and I first were working together in a coaching relationship, you were telling me these stories, and I was just blown away by the things that you were telling me. So if you can just give a little bit of background on some of the childhood stuff. Okay. That'd be great. Yeah. So we started out, imagine a one-bedroom apartment, you know what I'm saying, about that size, one bathroom, and it's 12 people. 12 people. 12 people. My mother had a twin sister. They both had 6 kids. My grandma, my uncle, a couple other people staying there. So imagine being number 9 in line for the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? And then, my grandmother, she had already raised 12 kids. So now she look around, there's 12 more people in the house. Wow. So, she was like, look, enough is enough. So that's when we moved down the dirt road and we got the trailer. And that's when it was really rough, because when my grandmother was there, my mom had us when she was really young. 15, 16, 17, she already had 3 kids. So she was really young. So my grandmother was there to provide that support when we was really small. But when we got down the dirt road, we was on our own. My grandmother moved back up north, and we didn't have any running water in the house for a while. So no running water. We used to have to go to the neighbors with milk jugs. Oh my gosh. And fill the milk jugs up with water. And we had a hot plate because the stove didn't work. And we would have to heat oodles and noodles on the hot plate. Or if you wanted to wash up, you had to warm up a little bit of water and put it in the sink. That's what they called them, sink baths, back in the day or whatever. So we went through that. I remember holes in the ceiling when it rained. We had to get buckets to catch the water like that. My brother got killed when I was 14. He was 13. He got shot in the head at point-blank range. Wow. As a matter of fact, the guy that killed him, I saw him a couple hours before. And this is one reason why, we talk about a feeling, that I always go with a feeling, because I looked him right in his eyes, and I got a funny feeling. I couldn't explain it. Yeah. Really funny feeling that my brother, he came and talked to us, and him and the guy left together, and a couple hours later, he shot him. He killed him. So I saw my brother laying there dead, with a hole in his head, and it looked like he was sleeping. I put my hand over his head, and I told him, I said, I live a life big enough for both of us. I said, when they see me, they'll remember you. Wow. And that's like when we say find the why. What gave me the confidence to sit here and to get on social media and do all of this stuff was I told him, we had dreams of what we were going to do. You little boys, you dream and you visualize, and we didn't have anything. So all we had was, what we was going to do, and we played make-believe. So we said we was going to do all this stuff. Now he's gone and I'm here. I'm feeling guilty, because he's my little brother, and I felt like I should have been able to protect him, and I didn't. So what drives me right now is one day I know I'm going to have to see him again, and he's going to be like, did you quit? Did you keep going, or what? So I'm able to tune out all the naysayers in the world and just focus on what it is, because at the end of the day, me and my brother had a mission, and as long as I'm here, I'm trying to fulfill that mission. Love it. Yep, so let's fast forward. So you and I sat together a few years ago, right before Thanksgiving. You remember you flew out for the day. Yeah. And we sat down literally and dry erased everything on a dry erase board. Like literally, what do you see yourself doing? And at the time, you had no presence on social media, right? Virtually no video marketing, right? So what you're all seeing here today wasn't even a thing until a couple of years ago. So what you've been able to do, in my view, is your ascent has been so fast. So what would you attribute that to? Because it's not just the spiritual gangster or the gangster thought and the belief system, but there had to be challenges too to overcome. Like you said, you're going to go put yourself out in the public domain. You've got a lot of followers on Instagram. You're doing videos all the time, so you're going to get haters. Yeah. So what were some of the challenges you had to overcome to get to that? Because there's a lot of things in the mind to have to get yourself to put yourself in the public domain.
Speak on that.
Yeah. So like I said, the first driving is my why with my brother. So I'm like, I got to do this. But when I first started doing it and getting in front of the camera, it was like a deer in headlights or whatever. I've never done that before. So I just undervalue myself a lot. And then I had to realize, you know what? I got something of value to offer to people. I genuinely want to help, and it's coming from a good place. And just let me put it out there, and whatever happens, happens. And as far as the ascent, like you're saying, going so fast, it's like I call it hustling 101. It's like, you got to make something happen. When you come from nothing, you got to figure it out. You're talking to a guy that used to get in the dumpsters, right, and get outdated candy that the stores would throw away that they couldn't sell no more. It was outdated. It was still good, but they couldn't sell it. We took it out those packs and we sold it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we always had to figure it out. It was always one of those things where, we had to be resourceful. Yeah. Like I talk about Pizza Hut a lot. My mom worked at Pizza Hut. We couldn't afford pizza, but we realized one day, if she worked in the night shift and we ordered some pizza right before the place closed and nobody pick it up, they let the waitresses take it home. So we used to order some food so we could get pizza. We had to do what we had to do. We probably the reason now you got to have a credit card when you order a lot of stuff or whatever. But, so we just had to be resourceful. So even when it comes to what I'm doing now, it's just constantly putting the videos out there. And I'm like, it's like the more you put out, you never know that one video that somebody going to see, somebody going to like it. Somebody hit me yesterday I hadn't seen in 10 years at least. And they said, somebody reposted your video and I saw it. And I was like, wow, you know what I'm saying? So, like, for me, it's just like put it out there. Don't worry about the feedback. And a lot of times, we live in such a negative world that if it's something positive, people won't really comment or won't really say anything. But the negativity they're going to respond to, and that goes right back to the brain, because the brain responds to negativity and barely responds to positivity. So understanding all of that, I don't let any of that interfere with what I got to do. The mission is just to put it out there.
Yeah. So last year during COVID, you and I teamed up on a project. We were doing a video. We did webinars and everything was going to Zoom during COVID, obviously, because people couldn't have live assembly. So we were doing them once a month. I think we did 12 or 13 of those. And a lot of the stuff that you talked about was real. It was like the chemistry, the way the brain literally works. Right. How the body works. We're talking about mind and body are one. That's something I'm really big on. But talk about some of the things that you're working on right now. I know the webinars and such. That's great. But you have other projects.
Yes. Well, I do the spiritual Sundays on Sunday. I really love that. I do that live every Sunday, and I basically take a Bible verse or some ancient wisdom and just equate it to the day and the people, and like not overthink it or whatever. And like you say, the brain is it's an amazing tool, and we need to use the brain and don't let the brain use us. And like I tell people a lot of the times, there's 100 billion stars in the galaxy, and it's 100 billion neurons in your brain. Are you in the world, or is the world in you? And that's how I look at it, because nothing can happen to you that don't happen in your brain. First, two neurons got to connect. Yeah. So I say know thyself, like the Greek said, understanding certain things, understanding that the brain responds to negativity. Then you understand why we live in such a negative world. And when you feel yourself going left, you can always come back to the positivity. We need 3 expressions of positivity for every 1 expression of negativity. So that's why and it's something that we got to be mindful of and be present, because if we just let the brain wander, it's going to start, is this okay? Is that okay? Because the brain is trying to keep us alive, not for us to thrive.
Yep. Love it. So one of the things in this show, one of my goals was to have each of my guests, you were the first one here, to give us takeaways. So I call them success strategies, things that you can kind of enlighten us to that help you every day. Could be business, could be personal or pleasure. I can leave it completely up to you. But if you can leave the audience 2 or 3 things to think about as we go into 2022 and people are creating their story.
Well, the first thing with me is I didn't value myself enough. I undervalued myself. So I think we all need to understand that we have something of value to offer. We here on this planet for a reason. The fact that we was even born is a miracle. So we look down on ourselves, and so I just want to, look within. Most people to look within, and, and as fast as time is going right now, one of my takeaways is don't wait for the future, live now. Be in the present moment and understand that your present thoughts are actually creating your future.
Love it. I love it.
And another last thing, 80% of our thoughts are negative and 90% are repetitive. So the thought precedes the action. And I know we talk about the thought, it's like an abstract thing that we can't touch. And a lot of people want, no, it's got to be something more to it. But the thought precedes the action. You can't do anything without thinking about it first. Yeah. So the quality of your life will match the quality of your thoughts. If you want to change your life, then you got to change your thoughts. And there's no way around it. Yeah. And that's science. They tell us to believe in the science. That's why I go to the brain and neuroscience and the body chemistry biochemistry and how we work. Each one of your thoughts actually changes the biochemistry of the brain, and it facilitates the release of hormones into the body and the blood, and the blood is the life force. So,
I love it. I love it. Hey, one thing I want to, before I let you go, I wanted to let the audience know we were just getting prepared in the studio here before I brought Henry on, and one of the identities I know that's most important to you as a man is being a father.
Yes.
A daughter, and you're married, and you have an amazing wife and family. And what Henry told me was, I asked him if he was going to be sticking around after the set, and he said, "No, I got to get home. I got to put my daughter to bed, man." Yeah. So I so appreciate that about you. You're so balanced. You take care of yourself. I mean, if you don't believe me, guys, go on Instagram. You can see him. He's working out. He's got his shirt off. He's got an 8-pack. But he's just such a balanced guy. So what you see right here, I use the word congruent. He's really congruent about everything he does, how he eats. I saw your post about your berries at the hotel this morning. I mean, he gets his berries in the morning. He's doing everything he needs to do to be the best version of himself. So if there's a couple of takeaways that you could take from Henry, I'd really appreciate it. And, brother, thanks so much for coming out from Beverly Hills.
Thank you for having me.
Any parting words to the camera?
Keep it gangster.
Keep it gangster.
Gangster mentality, perseverance, consistency, and faith.
I love it, man. I love it. Appreciate you, brother. Love
Thanks
you.
a lot. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to bring on my next guest. This is actually his home. This is where I'm at, sitting here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Patrick Ansherman I've met through some mutual friends years ago, both Phoenicians. One thing that really I took to Patrick, not only because we both look almost the same. He's not wearing his glasses today. If he wore his glasses, you wouldn't be able to tell us apart. But he runs Event Lab Studios, CEO of the company. He's really big in the multifamily space. I've been able to be on the stage with him several times at his own annual events, and he'll speak on some of the stuff that he's working on as well. So without further ado, Patrick Ansherman, thank you so much for allowing me to come into your home, brother. The chair, usually in this chair, right?
So awesome to be here. Yeah, it's a little different. It's easier to have the questions.
Yeah, it's definitely a different angle.
Yeah.
So let's, as the format goes, tell us the story. Like, how did this whole thing come about? And how did you get into the business? And then we'll fast forward to the things you're working on today. You know,
honestly, we have been thinking about video for many years because people would come and sponsor our events, and it'd be one event, a lot of energy around one event, and a lot of money spent to interact with the marketplace. They have products that they want to introduce to the multifamily industry, spend a lot of money on sponsorship, and we just figured out there's a better way to tell the story. Everybody's got a TV in their pocket, and we can reach people, all across the globe with video. And we can turn that video into something else. We can turn it into an article, we can turn it into snippets, and we can amplify that and do one thing and get many things done over time. And so we were already leaning into that. So the studio that we built at Event Lab is really designed to support all the efforts that we do. It's like a CNBC for multifamily industry. And so, for that, it was when COVID hit, we were thankfully lucky to have invested in all those technologies and the producers and the production team and the equipment and the studio itself. Mm-hmm. So that allowed us to have, I think, a competitive advantage to make that pivot. Yeah. So one thing that's I found fascinating, because as a speaker, and I know you're a speaker as well, is we get brought into these conferences, live events. People spend $10,000, $20,000 to get us on stage for an hour and just do a keynote speech, and that was gone. I mean, that was wiped away March of 2020, and I know a lot of people in my industry, and you do a lot more than just speaking in digital media. It's got a lot of things going on. When it halted, the pivot, that was such a critical thing. I remember the exact conversation we had. So can you speak to that a little bit? How did you change? How did you react to that? Because a lot of people believe, though, well, we can't get together live anymore. We can't do these big live conferences, but how can we still be effective? Because I think that's one of the biggest limiting beliefs a lot of my clients still have to this day. Can you speak on that a little bit? Well, yeah, and absolutely. And so part of that came from me just following people that have done great things in this world. I mean, you think about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk disrupting industries. They were doing things that created a lot of resistance before there was a need to do it. And so how we behave, I think, is in these inflection points or these pivotal moments in historical times. When we went from horses to cars, pictures to motion pictures, cordless phones to mobile phones, all these transitions that we've had in our lives have been around a technology innovation. And not everybody saw that at the same time, right? You have the early adopters, the laggards, and those that want to see other people do things first. And so I use a principle that Elon Musk uses in thinking. And what he says is the biggest challenge for engineers is that they often optimize things that shouldn't even exist, right? So you're hearing people say today, like virtual event. Well, an event is an event. There's been virtual events for 60 years at the Academy Awards.
Right.
We watch the Super Bowl all the time, right? It's the highest advertising moment in advertising, and that's a virtual event. And so sometimes the experience you can get through video and TV, you can get up close and personal. You bring the audience to them. And so I think it's this first principles thinking that Elon Musk talks about, which is essentially, thinking about things, like that engineer. And, for us, it was like, do we need the trade show? Do we need the event? What are the ways that we can move through these challenges? And so, as we went through that, you looked at and I mentioned earlier, we've got a TV in our pocket. So if I have a product, a brand, a message, and I need to reach people, that's been disrupted. And so as you hear people talk about things, they talk about them for what they used to be. I mentioned cordless phones. We said that because we had no way to describe a phone that didn't have a cord.
That's true.
We don't say, where's your cordless phone today? It's not even your cell phone anymore. Before it was cellular because it had cellular service. But now it's just a mobile phone, and I don't even know if it's a phone anymore. I don't even use it as a phone. It's just a mess. It's just an office. So I think that's important to be in tune to, where things are going and be comfortable and the courage to take it on. Now, you heard Henry talk earlier about the brain science. When you're out there doing those messages, the same applies, because people are waking up afraid, waking up concerned about something. And so when you can be that creator, that product, that brand that makes life get better for people or make a problem go away, they're going to pay attention to it, and they're going to come away with more of the signal than the noise.
Yeah. So what would you say, a similar question I asked Henry, biggest challenge you think you've had to overcome here the last, let's call it, handful of years?
Yeah, so for us, we, and Tony Robbins taught me this, is like give them what they want so you can give them what they need. And so for us, we knew what was best for the client and the outcome that they wanted, but they weren't there yet in the adoption, in the comfort zone and the use case. They hadn't experienced all the work we've done in messaging and doing, modern marketing. So it was really just getting the clients comfortable and safe and familiar with the process. It's a big hurdle. And, Amazon and other brands are training customers right now that you don't need to go to a grocery store, all those things. So, leveraging other sort of modern, consumer-generated products and using those energies to, get momentum around the things you want. But for us, it was literally getting people to think differently about, how to go to market, how to introduce a brand, how to talk about your product, how to get a client, how to move a sale forward, all those things. Yeah. And it's in that moment right now where it's still people think it's going to go back some other way, where you go to the country club, you go to the golf club, you take people to dinner, all that stuff. You can still do those things, but you can't rely on them.
Right. So that's been the biggest drum I've been beating with my coaching clients this past year, because so much of that stuff is taken away. You may be a great golfer, but you can't go to the country club in certain parts of the country, right? You may be great socially, but you can't go in a restaurant because it's closed down.
Right.
So how do you become more effective is, digital video marketing. So one of the things I want you to talk about, because I'm big on this, why is it and how to overcome it is everyone knows that they should do it. They should turn that camera around, start creating content, for a minute and a half, push it out there, get on social media in an effective way, whether it's LinkedIn. Some people don't like Facebook, that's fine, but they can use social media to their benefit. Why is it that you think that people don't do it, even though they should? Number one. Two, give us some advice on that. Like, what's the right answer? Should you be doing content every day? I mean, you see Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vee, for example, he's huge. He's doing content all the time. And he'll even tell you that, some of my content sucks, but you know what, I'm doing it all the time, and you never know what you're going to touch. So can you speak on that a little bit? Because I think people have a lot of limiting beliefs about just turning that camera around and shooting this video themselves.
Yeah, it's like anything in life. If you don't do it, you're not good at it. And if you're not good at it, you're not going to want to do it. And so I think practice is important. But the good news today is before it used to be everything needed to be perfect and what am I going to say? And they tune into a lot of what Henry was talking about today is like, if I think that they're optimizing for the wrong thing. So I put out something, it didn't work, I'm not going to continue doing it. and they're optimizing for a like or a share or something like that. But if you look at your business and you think about if more people knew how amazing our team is, how amazing our product is, and how much we care about the world we live in and the opportunities we want to create. So don't think of it like marketing or optimizing to get a sale. Think about how do you bring out what's inside the organization in a documentary style, right? Like just documenting. Here we are, we're meeting with a client. Take a picture of that, put it online. I'm heading to Florida, and here's why. I'm going to go meet with these insurance brokers, and I'm going to be sharing this message on this. And so you're just telling the story of what you're doing to bring the value to the people you want to spend time with, right? And typically, that's going to reveal how amazing you are as a company, amazing you are as a leader, a brand, and people that want to do great things and experience great things are looking for those types of things. And so I think you're going to be surrounded by a lot of people that are going to say it didn't get a lot of views or it didn't get liked or whatever. I mean, I posted something on LinkedIn, and I think it got like 1 like or 2. But I got 7 meetings with high net worth, wealthy wealth managers that are it's not in their DNA to share and like and comment on social media, but they heard the message. And they knew about what kind of problems I solve, what kind of opportunities I create, and who I help. And the reality is there was a message, so now you have the people, you're starting to attract the people that want to experience your brand and want to work with you on the things that you enjoy working on. And so I think it's, again, back to it, you don't do it because you haven't done it.
Right.
And you take out the assumptions of I'm doing it for vanity, or do I look good today, or do I have on the right outfit, all that stuff. Just document the things that you're working on and the types of problems you're solving.
People like that's one thing. You look at the most popular YouTube videos, they're not professionally made. It's Justin Bieber sitting in his house with his wife, with his dog on his lap, goofing off or whatever. I mean, these are the kind of videos that I think that people get stuck on how they look. I mean, we don't like our voices. We don't like how we look. I mean, that's all natural. But when we kind of get out of the way of ourselves, to Henry's point earlier, you never know how you're gonna touch people in such a different way.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point. So, like in speaking, the speaker stands on stage, and it's not about them; it's about the audience and the transformation you're going to make for them. So, when you're doing these things, don't think about if you're thinking about how does this look, how do I look, how do I sound, all that stuff. Then just shift it to the audience. Who needs to hear this message? Yep. Who's struggling with this problem I know how to solve? Who wants to go to the places I'm going, or I can take people? Or who wants to enjoy this kind of brand because the bad alternative to this brand is this other thing? And that would be a disservice to let people experience that.
I love it. All right, so before I let you go, you got to give us your takeaways. So 2022, what's your story? A lot of people are going to take away from this segment. This 1 hour, hey, they need to create their own story. They need to write their goals down. What's written is real. You know that. So hopefully they're going to write their goals down. But if you had a couple tips or success strategies that people need to consider as we go into the new year, what would you say?
Yeah, so I think, business development, getting sales, moving a product forward. I think people focus on how do I get the client, the pursuit of it, how do I get the meeting, how do I get the product in the store, whatever that is, they're pursuing. And I think if you optimize for how do I extract the things that are happening in our business from all product design people, all that stuff, and allow that to be shared out in the world so that credibility and trust is created, then people are doing research. The consumer purchasing experience, the way that they discover and find brands has all changed. It's not about sales. They're doing their own research. Mm-hmm. And so by the time they talk to a salesperson, they've done a lot of research. So if you can create content that can create credibility and trust, when the time that they're doing that research, by the time they're ready to buy, they'll reach out and want to work with your brand or your product or those types of things. So I think it's optimizing for credibility and trust instead of the conversion, because an expert, someone that knows what they're doing, that's trusted and credible, sales is easy.
Yeah. I read there was a study that came out right after, it was probably 6 months into COVID, and Microsoft had published it. And they talked about how those old days of seeing something visually or seeing a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, you got to feel it, see it, touch it. Yeah. And it's like 6 to 8 times before they're ready to make a decision. They said that's all gone. It's 12 times before someone hears about what you have to do to engagement. Engagement just means get the meeting. So you might have to make a phone call, do a video, text message, follow up. 12 touches. I mean, it's just because we can't get face-to-face anymore during these COVID times.
Right.
So that was a game changer for me because when I'm prospecting, just like you, I'm monitoring that. I'm thinking about what CEOs I need to get in front of, and I keep track of the touches. So I know if I'm only at touch 6 over 3 months, I got to keep knocking the doors down because you never know what's going to happen. So
yeah, absolutely.
good stuff. Any other parting words for the audience?
No, just have the courage to do it. And, ultimately, there's never been a better time to interact with the marketplace and tell that story. Because before, we used to have gatekeepers, TV channels and studios and those types of things. And right now, everybody has a TV in their pocket. So it's time to be seen. We all grew up in a TV generation. So,
yeah, so true.
Tell
Patrick,
the story.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
All
I
right,
appreciate it.
good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to transition to my next guest, Ian from Spiritual Gangster. That's what I call him. He's just my man, Ian. So, Ian, can you hear me okay, bud?
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. So we had to call an audible. I was kind of had a freak out moment the other day, but I thought, after I calmed down, I realized, life happens and we have technology. So we're going to sit here and talk about technology. If Ian couldn't be live in studio, we could zoom him in. That's the power of technology. So I appreciate you taking the time. You got to tell us where you're at too, bro. Where are you at exactly?
I'm in Kelowna, Canada, heli skiing. Today I took the day off to be with you guys. But
oh man, I appreciate that. Well, let me give you a little context here. So Ian is a co-founder of Spiritual Gangster. He's going to tell the story of Spiritual Gangster. I met Ian through mutual friends several years ago. Went into his office at the time, and it was a pretty cool experience, kind of a Zen experience. Just the way he lives his life. He's very spiritual, meditation. I mean, the way his morning habits. He can talk about some of that stuff in a minute. But I just knew, like in the first 5 minutes, the connection that I had with him, not just on the spiritual level, but entrepreneurship and the belief system and the people that we hang around. And then fast forward, lo and behold, our kids actually go to school together. So I get to see Ian at pickup and basketball games and probably see each other more than we want to sometimes. But that's good. We get to force each other to talk a little business on football fields every once in a while. So I wanted to, Ian, we're going to punt the same question to you. I asked Henry the question. I asked Patrick the question. I love the story, and I don't think enough people know about it enough. I actually went and Googled your name a couple days ago, which I know the story, but I wanted to see what was out there in the public domain. This whole concept of spiritual gangster, how the hell did that come about? You got to tell us that story, and then tell us what any color to the story of what spiritual gangster was when you founded it.
Well, yeah, thank you. First of all, it's always great to be with you, Michael, whether it's at flag football or basketball, and now being there with your audience and getting to share our story.
Yeah.
So, my background, I grew up in Detroit, and then I became an entertainment lawyer in LA. And during that time, I got really addicted to yoga, and I was watching yoga boom. And I ended up quitting my entertainment law job, moving to Arizona and opening a chain of yoga studios. About 10 years ago, and at that time I was traveling all over the world, and I was teaching yoga to hip-hop rap music. So one time during class, I would play like Tupac or Biggie Small or stuff like Stevie Wonder and stuff with a really big beat so I could get the entire room like a school of fish on the same page. It was really an amazing experience. And a friend of mine came up to me after class one time. She said, "You're like a gangster, a spiritual gangster." And we had some boutiques in our yoga studio. We were sort of ahead of the curve there. We're like, fitness boutiques didn't really have clothing. So we started, my wife, Vanessa, as well, she ran our boutique, and we started making some t-shirts that said Spiritual Gangster, and we started selling them in our yoga studios. About 10 years ago, I sold the yoga business to Lifetime Fitness, which is now a publicly traded fitness company. And Spiritual Gangster was really sort of an expensive hobby. What we realized is we loved what yoga did. We loved how it opened us up. We loved the community we created. We wanted to find a way to take those vibes and that community and build it globally. So Spiritual Gangster for the first kind of year and a half was more of an expensive hobby. My wife we knew nothing, first of all, about the fashion business. I'd never been in retail. It was just, we wanted to find this touch point to bring this energy and these vibes and get them out behind the four walls of the yoga studio. So it started, we'd buy blanks. We were storing them in our garage or our house. Our kids were tagging the shirts, and it was very much an expensive hobby. And then probably about a year after selling the yoga business, we said, okay, let's go all in on Spiritual Gangster. We really have something here. We had early accounts from like Equinox who put us in Bloomingdale's in all their windows early on in New York City. And it was just something that the more that we tried to close it down in the beginning, we literally, Vanessa and I tried to shut down Spiritual Gangster 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. we were having a baby or anything else. And it just had something that had a life of its own and wanted to continue. So then we really had to figure out, okay, if this is going to be a business, how do we scale it and grow it, and how do we learn? And, there's so many challenges along the way. And I mean, Henry's got just an amazing story about, like, my dad used to tell me, you'll figure it out, right? So you just got to keep coming at it. Sometimes it takes 20 times, sometimes it takes 100, but you know where you want to go and you set the direction, and it's all about pivoting and being open. But a lot of Spiritual Gangster for us I always tell people it's a movement disguised as a clothing company. And it's about making people feel better. And it's about making people, it's almost like superhero clothes for adults. So I've had more people tell me, I was struggling with cancer and I wore this every day and it helped me. I wore my warrior shirt, or I wear my Spiritual Gangster shirt when it's really important to go, when I go, meet. It allows people to be their best selves. And, I'm a big believer of, it's like, it always starts with you, right? And the more you can be positive, the more energy you can have, the easier everything else becomes. So I think that Spiritual Gangster for us is really, giving positive messaging. And I know that we live in a world of negative messaging. And for me, it's all about keeping it positive and sharing good vibes and sharing that energy, and then finding our tribe around the world, because there's Spiritual Gangsters all over the world. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
And there are these pockets of just like amazing, wonderful people doing great things. And it's not just about yoga. It's people doing great things in all aspects of their lives. And so that's really sort of how we got to Spiritual Gangster.
So one thing, so I have my gear too. I wear your gear, and when I travel, especially in other parts of the country, and I know because we're West Coast, people may know more about the brand maybe on the West Coast than other parts of the country. So every once in a while, I'll be in an airport and someone goes, "Hey, that's a really cool shirt. Where'd you get it from?" But I want you to understand. I want you to explain that Spiritual Gangster isn't just selling T-shirts anymore. This is like a full-blown conglomeration. Can you brag on the company a little bit about how many stores you're in? What's your reach? I mean, because this is not about T-shirts. This is the movement.
It's a movement, and we sell, first of all, half of our business is online, and that's a real focus. How can we go more online? And that's, been trending in that direction over the last year and a half. But we're in probably 2,500 stores. We're in all the majors. We're in every fitness chain you can imagine, Peloton, Equinox, Core Power Yoga, Pure Barre. But we when we're on a ton of resorts, but we also like to be in places where people are doing things that are resonating with the Spiritual Gangster vibe, taking care of themselves, meditating, doing fitness, doing athletics, doing things that make themselves feel better, or you're on this great vacation with your wife and you go into the spa and you see a Spiritual Gangster, and then every time it reminds you of your great trip. So, we have a lot of different distribution points. But to us, it's also, we really want to drive more of it online, because then you can really communicate more with your, raving fans, what we call them, or clients. And I mean, I think Patrick hit on a lot of great things. There's so many things now that you can share through the digital world we live in and are in that you couldn't do 5 or 10 years ago. So that's really where our focus is. How do we get this message across, and how do we share our vibes and our positivity with the entire world? And I mean, the tagline for Spiritual Gangster is raise your vibration. It's not only individually, but raise the vibration of the planet, and that's really what it's all about for us. How do we leave this world a better place than we found it? And how do we make a positive impact? One of the things I'm really proud of, we don't share with a lot of people, is, the idea of we find karmic business partners. So it's like, one of the things since the beginning, for every Spiritual Gangster shirt ever sold online, we do a meal for Feeding America. Now we've done over 15 million meals. I've been on the board of Make-A-Wish, and we do a lot of stuff sponsoring kids with Make-A-Wish. And I mean, the stories that have come back to me are just incredible. So, I think that you can really have an impact. And, in the beginning, we didn't want to talk about that, or we just kind of did it because that's who we are. But now I think we're being more open to share some of the stuff where we kind of kept behind the curtain before.
That's great. That's great. So let's switch it up to what the challenges, the things that you may have faced, whether the company or yourself, whatever you're willing to share, how personal and really you want to get. But I love asking entrepreneurs the biggest challenge they had to overcome, whether it's business or otherwise.
I think, for business, it's been always a series of challenges. It's like, your life's a never ending mountain, right? You're always climbing it. And as you want to go, you want to figure out, like, how do I keep going? And there's a lot of times you get great momentum, and other times you sort of stall out. Like I said before, we knew nothing about this business. So in the beginning, we were just making it up as we went along, and some things actually helped us out, because we didn't sort of do what everybody else was doing. But I think the biggest challenges for us is at every level, there's something different you need to do to learn. From 0 to $1 million, from $1 million to $5 million, from $5 million to $10 million, from $10 million to $20 million. Usually what gets you on the step up the other mountain is not what's going to take you to the next step. So really learning and growing and evolving, it's almost like raising a child owning a business. So it's like, you have an adolescence period. So it's always and being able to interact. And for me, it's been about leadership, finding the right people. And really, in the beginning, people would tell us, even when we started with like, no one's ever going to buy something with the word gangster. And that's why I loved Henry's message about gangster, because to me, we're a gang for good, and it's about positivity, right? And it's about it's about hustle, and it's figuring out how to make it work. But I mean, more people told me, Bloomingdale's will never sell anything with the word gangster. And these are people working for us. And, so you have to really not set these false ceilings on yourself or limiting beliefs, and really believe in it. And I think, one of the biggest reasons why Spiritual Gangster has been so successful is because we believed in what it can be and the difference it can make. And we always focused on what it can become, as much as, like Tony Robbins says, work on the business you're in and work on the business you want to be in. So how do you always keep your eye on both and then bridge the gap and figuring out what you need? Like, I think life's about challenges, and it's about, overcoming and growing, and it can be fun. People, sometimes they get discouraged, but like part of the game is figuring things out. And I think that's really a beautiful thing, to have a laboratory that's making a difference for positivity and sharing with the world. And you're also evolving personally and professionally as you go.
That's great. Well, one of the things one of my favorite aspects of what I do is connecting people. Obviously, that's what we're doing here today. I mean, the three individuals I brought on didn't know each other from anybody until I brought us all together. And this is, the beginning of something awesome. But I want you, and I'm going to let you speak on this one, bud. Give us a tease. What are you working on? I know that people are always asking, what's that guy up to other than Spiritual Gangster? He's got to have something up his sleeve. He's an entrepreneur. He's always thinking. So what can you share with us?
So, one of the things I've been working on, I started writing a book in March, and I'm almost finished with it. And it's really, I based it sort of, one of my favorite books is The Alchemist. So it's sort of fictional story with messages. And so that's been fantastic. It's been taking a lot of my time and bandwidth. And then I'm also very into health and wellness and vitality, and, creating experiences for people to go and enjoy and evolve. And so that's been like the biggest use of my time. And I also, for us, is really, really fueling Spiritual Gangsters growth and getting the right team in there, and, getting all the resources so they work together. But I would say, I'm working on me now as much as anything. And I think it always starts with you. And, we were talking a little bit, and I think that the more energy I can come with, and the healthier I can be, and the more I can learn, and the more I can evolve, then whatever I'm doing becomes a lot easier. Like, I don't really focus on the problem. I'm really focusing on myself and my energy, and installing habits for me to be better, to be helpful, and really be a contribution. I'm wired for contribution. So I love being able to help people achieve what they want to achieve, or be healthier, or be wealthier, or whatever they want more of in their life.
Love it. So, hey, give us a glimpse of, I know you're big on morning routines. I know you're big on this, and there's a lot of books on that, right? Whether successful people do before breakfast. I mean, there's a lot of incredible books on it. Give us a little glimpse of the life of Ian in the morning. What's your routine, man? Because success habits are a big part of creating a great story as we go into 22.
100%. So, I think to me, it really sets up my day and my entire life and to win. So a couple things I do, I have 3 journals. I started with a 5-minute journal. I've been doing that now. My mother passed away almost 4 years ago. And the day she passed away, I started journaling. And then after that, I keep 2 separate journals. One is a goals journal. So I write every morning what I want to have happen in the day. Have an amazing call with Michael and Henry and Patrick, share wisdom with people, get people jazzed about the new year. And it always happens better than I want. But it's also important. I don't just journal in like, hey, I journal. I believe life is a platform. So you want to have relationships. You want to have wealth and finances. You want to have the right attitude. You want to be creative. You want to have serendipity and synchronicity. You want to be in the flow and in the zone. So I write goals in each of these areas. So, you see people who have no health and tons of wealth, or the other way around, or no relationships. I believe you want to have an equally balanced platform that rises. So maybe sometimes your business is going great, you're focused on your business, but now my relationship needs some more focus. So really going in each of those areas. And then I also must see, how am I doing in those areas? And my second journal is I write throughout the day of my wins. So, Henry nailed a thing. It's like, we're wired, right? So you want to basically change your neural pathways. So I only write about the good things that happen. I got to go hella skiing with my best friend. I got to do this call with you guys. My son's loving his basketball team. All these wins that are great. I'm writing only those things down. So I'm reinforcing those neural pathways versus focusing on, whatever else. And now I'm really wired to, wherever I go, someone's there to help me. They like almost appear out of nowhere, because I say I create friends everywhere I go. So it's like I'm at the airport, or I'm at the hotel, or but people show up out of nowhere to help me out to get what I want. And now I rely on that. And then every morning, this morning I did half an hour of Wim Hof breathing. I'm a big fan of Wim Hof. I've interviewed him before, spent some time with him. I do a meditation. And then I did like 45 minutes of physical exercises that I've been doing. But every day I set the platform with that, because what happens is, there's sort of two things going on. There's your energy and what you're bringing to the world. And there's sort of like this default, frequency that's applying to everything. And that's going on even when you're sleeping, so you have to wake up, and most people wake up and they go to their cell phone, or they go to social media or whatever. For me, it's like, if I'm going to surf the waves of life, and this is the best analogy, life is like surfing. You got to get out there. So you got to learn how to and you have to have a board, and the board is my energy. So the more energy platform that I can build, the easier I'm going to be able to surf all the waves of my life. And also too, it takes some effort to get out there and be in the right position. But if you put the work in early, then you can ride the waves, where other people are just getting fucking pummeled by the waves. So it's just a different deal. But I do think that for me, that's the most important part of my life, is setting up that morning ritual and routine and staying connected with that.
I love it. I love it. All right, man, before I let you go, you got to give us your takeaways for next year here. 2022, we're setting goals for everybody out there. You got life skills, success strategies, I call them. You got a couple takeaways for our audience. What would you say?
I think, I'm going to say a couple things. I would say one line I like is, your issues are in your tissues, right? So you need to be able to get that stuff out of your body. Like the thinking, like Henry's talking about, will manifest into the physical body, right? So it's important that you get your mind right. And then also to get your body right, because if you're not physically in great shape and have energy, everything's harder or challenging. So you're going to make your whole life easier if you focus on yourself and just set up these simple wins. Maybe I'm going to walk 10 minutes a day, or I'm going to do 10 push-ups. I'm a big believer. I have long goals, 10-year goals, and I have 1-year goals. And I think most people totally underestimate what they can do in 10 years, but they also overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and then they burn out. Like I'm not going to say I'm going to run a marathon this year, right? But if I want to run a mile, great. In 10 years, I could run a marathon if I was interested in. But really being realistic and doing things so you can gather momentum with those goals. And another thing that I would share with is one of my, I would say, keys to success is being aware of synchronicities, coincidences, and serendipity. They're all around us. The universe is always communicating with us. And the more open we can be and tuned in, alert, aware, accurate, seeing what's happening in reality, the more clues we can pick up on. And if you read on most people's success stories, one, they have hustle like Henry, and they're wanting to make it happen, but they have a plan. Then they show up and someone sitting next to them ends up being the guy who makes the movie for him, or the guy who gives them the job. So just being aware of and showing up and being present, I think that's a real key. And being aware of coincidences, serendipities, and synchronicities, because they're really feedback from your environment of what's happening.
That's so true. I remember one time, I'm a big believer in that. And when I was learning this technology, this belief of attraction, I was so in tune. Like I would wake up every day, like on a business trip, and I would literally say to myself, who am I going to sit next to on the airplane? Because something's going to happen. Someone's coming into my life today, somehow, some way, but I have to pay attention. But if I don't, you know how it is. Most people just kind of walk around life with their head down. They're not paying attention to what's around them. And a lot of times the power is already within, or it's already in your network, or it's people you know, but you don't even have your head up to see it.
Well, and I think too, the other thing too is like, I think it's an Einstein quote, but it's like, you have to, the biggest thing that you have to choose is it a friendly universe or is it an unfriendly universe? And if you realize like everything here is working for me, and it's conspiring to have my dreams happen and what I want. So how can I show up and then be present and alert and aware and tuned in enough to really recognize all the abundance that's around me and all these miracles that want to happen in my life?
I love it. Ian, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I know you're probably freezing your butt off up there, man. Have some fun. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here in a minute. We'll see you this week, bud. I'll see you at school.
Thank you.
Thanks,
all right, guys.
Sounds good. Thanks, bud. All right, so that's pretty much a wrap. You get a vision of what my life is like, with the friends that I hang around. So I get influenced in so many positive ways. I'm a big believer that you are who you hang around, the people that you attract into your life, and just to be able to have, Patrick and Henry and Ian. These are friends of mine. These are people who influence me when they don't even realize it. And I think that one of my favorite quotes is, "You never fully appreciate the extent of your influence on other people." So when I see these guys doing things, that motivates me. It makes me want to be a better version of myself. I feel like I have to be deserved to be of counsel, to be a coach, to be able to do events like this with us. If I'm the incongruent guy in the group, that doesn't make me feel good about my contribution. So if there's any questions out there, feel free. I've been monitoring the screen. I know we had some playful banter. Seamus, thanks for that, buddy. No, I'm not the man, bro. I'm just doing the best I can to be the best version of myself. So I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to share my friendships and the stories. I'm a big believer that the story is something that you could create. In fact, if you saw the landing page that Patrick's team and I put out there, there was a quote. It was from Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer is one of my favorite authors and speakers. Passed away years, God bless him. But he talked about how in life, the constant unfolding of your story of your life, you have to be the director, you have to be the producer, you have to be the actor. A lot of times we want to direct and produce it, but we don't want to be in it. We just want to see it from afar. So one of my favorite quotes, that's why I put it on that landing page. So I thought that for 2022, it would be great to challenge you as a client, as a friend, as a teammate, to think about what your story is going to be for 2022 to be the best version of yourself. And one of my favorite exercises is really simple. To Ian's point, journaling. I love journaling. You guys know that. If you write up on top of a journal page, a prompt as we call it, right? You date the page, and you say, "I am at my best when." ... I'm at my best when I wake up early, when I eat healthy, when I'm connected with my kids. You just write bullet points. You could come up with 30 to 40 things just like that. And when you realize you're your best when, you look at that list that you journal, you realize probably a lot of those things are not happening because we do. To Ian's point, we get off balance. You're maybe really great over here, but you're not great over here. So to have that board, as you call it, rise up equally, that's what we call life balance. It's an aspiration, of course, better chances you'll have. So I want to challenge you to do your story, write it out, create your goals. I'm big on the elements, specific, measurable, dated. When you timeline things, you write stuff down, what's written is real. But you also have to be mindful. Henry's point, well taken. We talk to ourselves 1,200 words a minute on average. Some of us a little bit faster, some slower, but most of it's negative. So we have to be really mindful of the thoughts that we feed because that's going to ultimately decide the direction of our day. It's going to ultimately decide the direction of our life. So I just want to say thank you so much. I'm really grateful for all the friends that have had a chance to join us today. Thank you, Henry, Patrick, and the team, and Ian for coming in today via Zoom. And I look forward to seeing you guys here in the new year. Make it a great story. Thanks so much. God bless.